Let's look at the idea, the concept of dividing a fraction by another fraction, or a whole number and a fraction. So we can review this idea by just revisiting something that you've probably already understood. How much of a quantity fits into another quantity? That's the idea you're trying to get at, because that is really what division in fractions is all about. So you can have a big quantity, and you want to know how much of this big quantity goes or fits into the small quantity. That's like saying a small quantity divided by a big quantity. And what you need to do is break them up into smaller parts and then keep checking until you find the right fit. So for example, this one here works. A quarter of this fits into that. So you say, okay, the answer is a quarter. So that's one way of looking at it. If this is a big quantity, this is a small quantity, then you want to know what part of the big quantity fits into the small quantity. You could also have something like a small quantity. How much of this fits into that? That's a lot easier. Just count how many of these go into it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you can also, so it depends, how do you think about it? It depends on whether it's a large thing or a large quantity divided by a small quantity, or a small quantity divided by a large quantity. So this is a simple example here of a large quantity divided by a small quantity. So how many halves make 2 wholes? So you've got 2 wholes. How many halves fit into 2? If you want to look at it this way, they're the 2 things, and how many of these fit into that? Well, that's easy. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's your answer. If you flip it and then multiply it, you'll get this answer 4. But what about how many 2's make 1 half? How do we do that? How many of these make that? And that's an example of what fraction of a large piece fits into the small piece. That's what we're trying to find. So you got these 2 here, and you got to divide this half by 2. Half divided by 2. It's very counterintuitive, but what we're really asking is, what fraction of this fits into this? And one way to find it is think of how many of these fit into this. We know that half of it won't fit into it. Half of it is that large, and this is very small. So let's try, see, that it won't work. So what about a quarter of the 2 candy bars? If you take a quarter of these 2 candy bars, that means like that, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've broken the 2 candy bars into 4 equal parts. And now if we take a quarter of these 2, that's this one, it fits perfectly. So the answer then would be a quarter. That means a quarter of 2 fits half. Let's try. So that is correct. What about a quarter of 2 candy bars? That's right. A quarter of 2 candy bars will fit into half. So let's try this one. How many 2's make 2/3? That's like asking what fraction of 2? What fraction of 2 things fits into 2/3? So that's 2/3. What fraction of this fits into this? Well, let's split this into thirds. So we have 2's, 2 wholes, to 6/3. And if you arrange it this way, those are the 6/3. And so these 2 of those sixths will easily fit into that. So we say 2/6 of it fit into that, and we can find the answer by flipping it over, and then we see we get 2/6, which means really it's a third, isn't it? Because that's 1/3. So that 1/3 fits into this. This is what we do. We reduce it to 1/3, and that's the answer. Let's look at it again. What fraction of 2 fits into 2/3? Let's look at it slow-mo, okay? So that's 2/3, that's 2. 2 whole things. What part of this fits into this? We know this is all broken into thirds. We know this is all broken into thirds, so let's break this into thirds. We have 6/3 here. Now, how many of these 6/3 fit into this? Well, 2 of them, definitely. So if we arrange it this way, we can see these 2 go in there. So that's 2/6 of all of this fits into here. And that's what we'll get if we actually do this flipping. Write this as 2/1 and flip it over and multiply across. That's the answer you'll get. You'll get 2/6. And 2/6 actually reduces to 1/3, because if you can join these up like that and that, you see this is a third. This is this much. So it's 1/3 of this fits into that. Pretty neat, isn't it? So that's what division is all about. How do we find how much of one fits into the other? So here's another one. How many 2's make 3.5? Basically, we're saying how many of these fit into that. Now, this is smaller than this, but still a little complicated. What we can do is look at it this way. How many of these fit into all of this? That's what they're asking, isn't it? So we know that if we can take these 2, that's 1. We know it, one of them fits in there. And then half of this would be this, and that fits. This half fits into this. So we'll say half of the original, 2. And then a quarter of this would fit into that, wouldn't it? A quarter of this would fit into that. So we can say another quarter. A quarter of these 2. So we have the answer 1 plus half plus quarter, or 1 3/4. That will be the answer. Oh, it sounds a little strange, but it's pretty logical. You want to look at it another way, we can also do it this way. Okay, let's look at it another way. What about breaking this into halves? All this breaks into halves, right? So 3 times 2, that's 2 halves, 2 halves, 2 halves, altogether 6 halves. And then there's one more half here. Add that to that. We have 7 halves altogether here. Just turn that into an improper fraction. And here, how many we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Or it breaks actually into quarters, or 4 quarters, if you like. So 2 wholes breaks into 4 quarters, not halves. So how many of these? 4 quarters here fits into all of that. So that's 4 quarters goes in there. And then 2 of these quarters fits into that. So move that here. That's another 2 quarters, okay? And then 1 of these quarters fits into there. That's another 1 quarter. Altogether, we got how many quarters here? That means 7 of these quarters fit into all of that. And 7 quarters we can get again. If you turn this 2/1 and you flip it over 1/2, we get 7 times 1 is 7. 2 times 2 is quarter. 7 quarters, which is 1 whole and 3/4. This is 1 whole there. That's this whole thing fits into that. And 3/4 of this fits into that. You see, 3/4 of this fits into that. And that's the answer. So whichever way you look at it, division is a complicated thing sometimes to comprehend. But if you think about it, the idea is quite simple. It's commonsensical. You can get it. So half divided by 2. This is a large number. It means they're asking what part of this fits into half. Well, we can find the answer if we just flip this over into 1/2. This is 2/1. Turn it into half, flip it over, and then you get the answer 1/4. So a quarter of 2 fits into half. That's your answer. What fraction of 2 fits into 2/3? We did this with pictures. Now we just do the flip thing. 2/3, what do we do? Times. And then this is 2/1, so we'll turn it into half, 1/2. And then we just multiply across 2/6, which reduces to 1/3. There you go. Okay, 3.5 divided by 2. How many 2's fit into 3.5? We'll turn them all into halves. So that's 7 halves. Okay, And divided by 2 means divided by 2 over 1, which means multiplied by 1 over 2, and then multiply across, and you'll get 7/4, which breaks down to 1 whole and 3/4. Now you try it. What'll you do here? Right, break this all into thirds. 2 and 2/3 make how many thirds? What's your answer? Very good, 8/3. So we'll write 8/3 there. And divided by 4 would become what? Multiplied by 1/4. Excellent. Now we multiply across. What do we get? 8 and 12. Very good. Can we reduce it any further? Yes, if we divide both of them by 4, it reduces to 2/3, and the answer is 2/3. There you go. That's it. Now you know how to divide fractions by fractions. Fractions with whole numbers divided by a fraction. The answers are all the same. You do the flip thing, but you at least understand what it's all about. And that's the important thing. It's just developing a way of thinking by which you can tell how many of one part fits into another, or what fraction, or what part of one whole thing fits into another part. That's it. Take care. Keep practicing, keep working on it, and you'll be a master in no time. Take care, and bye-bye. Have a wonderful day.